going to be a couple minutes late. I know our first item on the agenda is the minutes. Have you had a chance to review that, Lena?
I don't know. I have before. They look pretty
You
good.
just pull up his agenda. I haven't heard from Representative Butler whether he's attending or not, but I know we're at the end of the workday here for our employees, so I'd like to start if we could. First item, and like I just said, Representative Nelson's going to be a couple minutes late, asked me to start the meeting. So I will I'll move the minutes as distributed from October 30th. For consideration.
Motion to accept, or you need a second?
The second would be fine.
Second's fine.
And all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
First item, the next item on the agenda, excuse me, is Mr. Martin to update us where, it's Mr. Martin, isn't it? Yes, okay, thank you. Mr. Martin, if you could update us where you are and what you've discovered or done since our last meeting last month.
Well, I already have a lawyer on board to do the nonprofit paperwork for me, because that's an important part of what I'm doing with the academy, is taken that way. Also, we seem to have difficulties to get a contract together for some, maybe Ken, about getting a contract for the taking over the building.
Yes.
Your lawyer doesn't have time
Right,
to put it together.
right. So
What
are
are
you going to do something about it?
The lawyers that's working on my nonprofit said he could put a contract together in a day and can come back to the committee to look at. If that's all right, at least it's a start. It's an important thing to have the contract, because I have a whole list of things that need to be done down there in the building, along with that I'm paying for. And I don't know whether you,
Do you have multiple copies of that list?
yeah, I have.
Can I have copies, please?
Would you like them? I got a couple extra ones that somebody wants. And the list isn't going to cost a lot of money, but it's stuff that has to be done to actually open up the culinary program with the state and everybody else. That, I have to have it approved by. So, and also to get in there and get started is another important thing. We need to be marketing for the program to get up and running. We're looking at August to start having the classes start. But marketing is this big part of this whole picture for young adults that need to or would like to have a career path after they leave. And I also, these students will be doing internships in restaurants during the 8 months that we have them. So it's very important for them to get the skills and go do an internship, and then we'll place them in a job. around the state, or wherever. This seems to be the best place. Bill told me that people wanted to know where the money was coming from, which I spoke about that at the last meeting. Now, I did a quick form because one of the things that brings the money in is having a spreadsheet and a business plan. I have a business plan, but we need to redo some of the breakdowns for the business plan, and we can't do that until we take over in the and start doing the work in the place down there. Without that, it's kind of hard, because if you look at this, we do have income coming in from the students when they come on board. I put in catering. We're going to do a lot of catering out of the I apologize for being late. That's okay. Because the program is set up for them to do everything, learn how to do everything. It's a national program, which the National Restaurant and Hotel people put together for their needs. And they're going to need to know the front of the house, the back of the house, how to put food together, how to cater to people in that kind of position. So the 8 months is a lot of work for them. We really can't do anything about the bank and all the people that have told me that they would come up with the money to, when I finally get a contract and go in there, I'll have my list with all the costs on it, and they'll write a check for that particular park. And I have a person that's doing a foundation through the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation for a donation. And there's 2 or 3 different organizations out there that do the same thing. So that is basically what we're looking at for income. Again, we can't do anything like that until we have a contract. My lawyer said he can do it and put it together for you guys to see if there's something else that you need in the contract over the basic of the lease and the amount of money that is going to be coming into the organization every month. So one of our biggest thing is getting the building ready so we can start promoting it as fast as we can, and getting some students to sign up for the program. One of the things that I found by the last 3 or 4 weeks working in the kitchen here, has a great kitchen, has a really great staff people in that kitchen, but again, there's a lack of skilled labor, that he could use some more people. So the need is out there all across the state about the lack of skilled labor. So we're hoping that we can get 20 students to start off the first year and get them on board for that kind of stuff. We put together brochures and we're putting together the marketing. Again, we're at a standstill until we have the contract and everything approved by you people, or you have your own contract. So that's very important. Because it is going to take us 3 or 4 months to
Thank you.
put this all together. It's not just going to happen overnight. So, I think the unit we're looking at there's not a lot of work, it's just a lot of putting things back together the way they should be. So, and all the costs that we're paying for. So we can not put something more on your plate. The buildings where the kitchen was is in good condition. We just got to put it back together. There's no leaks in the roof there. I don't think there's any leaks in the rest of the building, but maybe. But it isn't going to, we got to put a few new things in and have the sprinkler systems all brought up to date and those kind of things that need to be done. Questions?
For the record, Chairman Nelson has joined us. Do you want to take over at this point?
Sure. I don't know what I missed, and again, I apologize. I wasn't expected dentist appointment. Late. Question? Let's go around the table. I have a couple myself, and I alerted you to those questions. The rent, electric, gas, how's it all figured out in this?
How it is?
How are you paying for that, or how do you expect? Are you going to pay for that?
Yes,
Okay.
everything is on the list.
Okay. And I'm pleased to see that you've changed this since you originally came in, the tuition increase. What happens if not enough people sign up? Will you be able to operate if you only have 8 students to start?
Probably, we're looking at 20, 25, but 8 students, it's a start. And I have, it's amazing, since this hit the newspapers, and I'm not sure how they got in the newspapers, but anyhow, I've had a lot of parents call me up and say that their people or their child are graduating from high school and are interested in coming to this program. I probably have 15 parents already called me about that. So, and we're going to be marketing for the whole state.
Now, your original proposal mentioned boarding students, or the one that you gave the commissioners had boarding students. Is that still en route? To room? We moved that back till 2025, just because of the space. And but I would take as many people as that can come in to make it work. It's until we get it all marking and see where it is really coming, this makes it hard. Yeah.
I have a few. Do we have a letter of intent from the commissioners or from Len on the next steps? Because I think that was where we left off. Or somebody's going to present something to us so we can vote on it.
Well, I just said my lawyer will put a contract together to move on, because if we can't be able to move on until we have that contract put together.
Okay. The Lakes Region Culinary Academy, have you reserved that trade name?
That'll be, yes, and it'll be part of the contract and everything else that
You have done that already?
Hmm?
You've done that already?
No, yeah, I can't, it's really difficult to do something if we don't know where we stand, so.
You might want to get on that.
Is this the,
That's the existing name for the Lakes Region Culinary Institute.
yeah, the lawyer's doing that.
Yeah, you might have a hard time getting that through the state to change to the exact same name.
For a nonprofit? I don't know, he said it take him a couple of days to do it, so I don't know.
No, you can do the nonprofit in whatever name, but to get this name, to have it the academy, you're gonna have a similar operating as, because this one's operating as a culinary school and food critics is what it looks like. So you might want to take a look at that.
Well, I'll just pass it on to my lawyer.
It's right on DOS, SOS, sorry. And you're going to do the name registration?
Mhm.
Have you had any contractors look at the common areas?
No, how, again, until I have the paper in my hand, I'm not, we're not, you're holding me up.
Mr. Martin, if I may ask a question. So you say that the contract is holding you up from having contractors come in and look at whatever you need to know for what cost you would have for renovation? I'm confused by that.
The contractors aren't holding up. It's not having a piece of paper saying that I'm leasing the property.
Wouldn't you want to know before you lease the property what the issues might be, the contractors?
That's what I have the list. And that's what we put together for that. If somebody gives me the okay, I'll have contractors in there next week doing estimates and stuff.
Right. Well, I think as Representative Avellino alluded to, was we were supposed to be putting together a letter of intent that would allow you access to the building to be able to get those numbers so you could further your business plan. And, you know, if you don't have that, then, or the assurance that you are being allowed in there and you're not allowed in there, because I felt to me like when we left that day that you were certainly going to be allowed access to the building under reasonable terms, you know, during normal business hours, and that they would let you in and let anybody in there to help you to any extent that you need to help your business plan. Is there any reason why that we can't let Mr. Martin go in at this point?
Not at all.
Unless you want.
So-
Unless you have any liability concerns.
You know,
A letter of intent would demonstrate his intent. Just having people walk around the building that we don't know could be an issue.
right.
I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I mean, if
I don't
there's,
see how it's an issue.
yeah.
Acceptable
For the-
risk.
What?
Acceptable risk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, under the terms of acceptable risk, we don't want them rappelling down the side of the building, and, you know, things of that nature, but if they're in there, I mean, from our standpoint, the building's sound, they shouldn't get hurt
Sure, absolutely.
unnecessarily.
Absolutely. I mean,
So-
I have some storage equipment in there, but that can be moved at any time. Certainly don't want to move it unless we know that the place is going to be occupied.
Mhm.
But as far as him having access, anytime.
So that shouldn't be holding you back from your end, as far as getting the contractors in there to give you a better idea of what you might be looking for as far as costs. You know, we want you to move forward, and that's also going to be, I would think, part of, you know, your ability to pay on the lease. Some of what has been brought to our minds was that, you know, in the terms of you're basically going to carry all the operating costs, insurance, reasonable insurance, and the gas and the electric, and, you know, we're going to make the necessary arrangements that we need to make in order to be able to bill you the proper amount of heat that you're consuming, and the propane will be separate anyway. And all those, the minutia there that can be ironed out in the contract, which actually Bob here is going to have probably the best when it comes to the utilities, how that's going to transpire. You know, but then beyond that, you know, we're going to need a little money to cover capital costs, because someday we will need to make roof repairs or structural repairs. So, you know, as soon as you can get that lease to us, the faster that part of it's going to go. But as far as you being able to move forward, we should be able to put together a letter pretty quick. I mean, do you think you can put something together for them just for those purposes?
No.
And
I don't
send
think
it over
that's,
to the
I don't think
commissioner's
that's, I
office?
don't think, a letter, some kind of a letter, no, I think that burden should be on Len to put together a letter. Or unless I'm misunderstanding your question.
If I could, we're in a little bit of a spin here. I was under the same impression as the commissioner was last time, that we had asked you, because the last thing we wanted to do was hold this effort back. So we had instructed you to do your due diligence to move forward. I think to Bob's point, I think there's been enough said here today that perhaps you could draft for the commissioners that letter of intent, which would allow access to the facility so that they can inspect these items, and the county's held harmless during their inspection. Let's take care of that if we could this week. Your contract, I don't know that you need this talk back and forth about a contract. You don't need that contract until you've done your investigation to see if this thing makes sense or not. But I would urge you to move with all diligence, and I'm sure the commissioner's going to come out with a letter of intent, just to allow you to do this investigation. I think that's where we should be. Because
I agree.
We're no further today than we were a month ago.
Because it's hard not to have that.
We will do
Yeah,
our part to
absolutely.
meet your
Sorry.
deadline, not your deadline, but to try to move things along once you have your ducks in order. Has a rental figure been put into this? Or are you assuming that you're getting free rent?
No,
No.
there's no free run.
I was going to say, it's-
So you should move forward on your contract as far as your business plan and what you think that you can
Yeah.
afford as a rent and pay reasonably as a rent. I think as, it was Lisa voiced that, we weren't trying to make a huge amount of money on this proposition, but we definitely wanted to cover any possible future capital costs that we might need for repairs of the roof or something down the line. So we would expect a reasonable amount of money, during the course of negotiations. But then that negotiation needs to start by you giving us an offer.
Representative Monk.
I agree. I agree with what's being said here. I guess my question for you, sir, is do you have other people that are working with you? I know you have a long history and, of teaching credentials and your own personal accomplishments in your industry, but do you have someone else that's working with you on this? It's a pretty daunting task to pull all this together.
I have a board of directors, if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
And I met with my board the other day, and I have to come up with a person to oversee the financial part of this whole thing on my board. I just hired the lady over there. No.
Well, you're wise.
So that is something that in the next week I have to get on board, somebody that can oversee it along with the other 5. I have to have 5 board members for the nonprofit to go through.
Questions?
I got a couple more along those lines after he gets in there and takes a look. I thought that's where we would be. How are you going to pay for the improvements?
The improvements that,
Whatever you need over there to make that feasible.
if you look at the list I gave you, the people at
TD Bank, Score?
yeah,
Banff
that's the
Restaurants?
ones they're gonna do. Once I have that sheet filled out, how much it's gonna cost to do the things we need to do, they'll give me the money. Because otherwise, if we're looking at August to start the school, we'll be marketing to get the tuitions in to keep it all going.
Couple more.
Sure.
Financing after improvements.
Hmm?
There was no list in here, no money set aside for financing after improvements were done or anything like that. It's kind of something to look at probably down the road to put some type of debt service in there. And I'm guessing with some of the leasehold improvements, would there be financing restrictions or collateral if it's a construction loan or something like that?
Yeah.
If you buy equipment or something and it's, TD Bank gives you the money for it, is it going to be, their asset until it's paid off? And what happens if it doesn't work?
Part of the money is they're giving to start up new businesses.
So you're going to get to somewhat of a grant, and then do you have any letters of commitments from any banks that they're going to look at you?
They're
or-
gonna, as soon as I know what all the expenses are, they'll, I have to do that along with my business plan.
Okay. That's, that covers it for me.
Since we have him here, we're going to ask any questions from anybody else. I know this is our meeting, but we'd love to get input from other people. While we're here, so you can cover all your issues at once, okay? Thanks. President?
Mr. Chairman, my recollections from the past meeting were, one, the memo of understanding was their requirement rather than a contract because they do not have nonprofit status yet, so we couldn't really do a contract at that point. So there was going to be a memo of understanding, if you want to call it a letter of intent, you know, that's fine. But the other thing that I recall from the last meeting was that you were going to be meeting with the Department of Education in terms of getting department approval to open as an academy, a culinary academy. And I was just wondering the status of approvals from the Department of Education.
They don't have a Department of Education. No, I'm only kidding. The person that I've dealt with for the last 25 years is no longer with the Department of Education. So I have to go down there and find out who's there, because they only have 3 people now running the Department of Education. So I guess...
It's costing the taxpayers a lot more than 3 people, I think, so hopefully we can find somebody.
Well-
But I, as a member of the House Education Committee, I will see if I can get a contact person for you.
Yeah, one of the things that the state has done is, or the Department of Ed did this last year, is hire a company to come in and do a third-party assessment of the programs around the state. And I'm talking about the tech centers. And so somebody's paying for that. I'm not, maybe that's part of what the Department of Ed is doing, but they had 15 people going around the state when I was teaching. And then all of a sudden it dropped down to 3. And then the lady that was in charge retired from there and is teaching and running a skills center for herself around the state.
When do you anticipate having to start paying rent?
All right, well, I think that's
Assuming you
something...
had an agreement and the commissioner, we all signed on board,
Yeah.
when would you expect to start, right? As soon as that agreement is reached, or do you expect when the school opens?
I would, it would make more sense for me to, when, in August, when we have, everything's done that had to be done, and we get all the tuition in. I was looking at this is just my thoughts, $1,000 a month to pay for the fees. And I think that's a reasonable amount of money considering the space. But again, that's, something you would have to pay.
Length of contract? Have thoughts of length of contract or agreement that you're looking toward?
Yeah,
What, have any idea how long?
yeah. My lawyer told me to go in with a 3-year agreement with the option to redo after the 3 years.
We're very fortunate because we have so many business people here.
Mhm.
And you have all sorts of backgrounds from everybody, so this is great. So the questions we're asking you are to help everybody.
Yep.
And obviously, we're here representing the taxpayers, so we just have to make sure everything's set. So before we end, your homework assignment is, 1, get this filled out with the numbers.
Yeah.
2, with all your inspections done. Let's see, commitment from, what do you want from the bank? Something we're looking for, a bank, a letter from the bank of some sort.
I can email you these questions.
Okay.
I can break them
Mark,
down.
do you have anything?
I'm all set. I just would say we postpone any further meeting until all that work's been done.
Okay. what we will do, we'll do that, we'll postpone making a decision. Once you have all the ducks lined up, we will meet again, and we will make a recommendation to the full delegation. So we can get this together in 2 weeks, we'll try to meet the next, we have to have a little leeway.
I still would need to do a little note saying that I need to get into there.
Yeah, I just talked to Ken. He said he had verbally told you to be okay, but just put together, you know, a memorandum of understanding or a letter of intent for you to be able to have access to that premises, and you will hold the county harmless of any liability that may take place wherein. So that's as long as, you know, the guys you bring in there are insured, which they better be, or we won't let them do the work. So you better, you know, so as long as they have their own insurance, you should be covered there, and as long as it's reasonable times, then, you know, you can have access to the building, you know.
I have to have a liability insurance along with an insurance for the fires or whatever
Right.
else.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a letter of insurance, if you already have your insurance, if you have that letter, attach that to the memorandum of understanding. And it doesn't need to be long and, you know, protracted, just something quick, and it's really just for the counties.
Okay. Any other questions? We've got to move this along.
Just one more.
Yes, sir.
What kind of insurance do you have right now, Len?
I have liability insurance for my catering business. And I went to where I have the insurance, and I explained to them what was going on, and they said they wanted to make sure that you people agree with the amount of insurance before they give me a new insurance.
What happens with events that are held here? How does that work out? I have no idea, insurance-wise, you decide to serve lunches or whatever. How does that fit into the equation for insurance? It's no longer a school, it's a restaurant or whatever.
You need offsite.
Everything's offsite.
You need on-site catering. If you're going to do on-site catering, then you need off-site catering. You need a rider for that.
Okay.
There's two different.
Yeah.
Okay, good, that's right. Okay, we thank you very much for coming. You can get back to us when you're ready to go, and we'll go from there. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas. You have your homework.
I'll be in here cooking.
Yeah.
All righty. Will you accept the minutes, Mark?
I'm going to leave these brochures, and this is our first start of marketing.
And remember, get on top of that name, because it's very hard. We tried once to put something in one little word, 894.
We
So-
just went through it
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
So make sure you do that before you go forward with any advertising.
Might take a little while.
Now, you go right down there.
It doesn't take long as you got the right name.
That's right.
But if it's close, then you dance when the rigmarole starts.
That's when the dancing starts with
And
everything.
that's what I think Representative Avalini is trying to tell you, is like,
Yeah.
that name's awful close, it may not be as easy to look.
Get as much done.
Change the name to Carroll County or.
This week.
If you go down there, they'll help you right down there.
Yeah,
They'll
it
sit there
doesn't
at a
take long.
computer and tell
It
you.
took me 4 tries when I did it,
Yeah.
before I was allowed to.
All right, moving on, please. Withdrawal of starting home proposal.
I had a conversation
Thank you.
Anytime.
with Representative Bumberger. Is Ken coming back to the meeting?
I would anticipate, so yeah. it's
Looks like his glasses are here, so.
And she had received a phone call from Dorothy Solomon that the group is withdrawing their proposal here at the county campus, and would not be presenting another presentation to us, and that they were investigating other off-site facilities to move forward. So the group is still functioning going forward. They've just decided that this is not probably the right place for them to relocate their efforts to.
I was disappointed in seeing some of the letters in the newspaper and also the editorial, which made the delegation look like the bad guys. I think just from speaking for the committee, year and a half, 2 years that this has been working, we had certain information that we requested that I never had copies of. a lot of things that didn't fall in place on their end, and I really felt hurt that we got the blame as we were preventing the school, the home from operating. And I think 2 years to work at it, and we had very specific questions we needed answered, and we never came forward with it. So I personally wish them luck in their new procedure that they're in, their finding a location, which is, and just wish them well, and we move on.
I agree wholeheartedly with your statements. Disappointed in the term political consequences, and I hope nothing but the best for them going forward.
Anything else? Do you want to add anything to that, or?
It would just be much of the same.
Okay. Proposed budget overview, 2016. Moving up in the world here.
I was sticking too far out. I felt like I couldn't see anybody.
Welcome to the good side of the table. Cologne.
We'll start dissecting this a little bit at a time, but just an overview would be great. And you had some questions that were good to look at.
What?
Never mind, I'll get to it. What's your overall picture for this facility, financially? We're looking at increase, decrease. I thought I emailed you some questions. If you didn't receive them, I apologize. Okay.
I received the
No, I believe it's
agenda.
Okay. Just an overall, because we'll go department by department
Yeah.
as we're going along. Just
We moved some of the health insurance into, each building has its own line item for health insurance. You'll see the nursing home has one line item, the jail has one line item, and the admin building has one line item. So you see how much the actual health insurance is. Health insurance is up about 10%. We won't know the actual increase until towards the end of March. They're saying not to go above 11.2%. So we went with a 10% increase. We did ask for non-union raises. 50 cents in January 1st and 50 cents April 1st. Apparently last year, the non-union received less than what the union received. And union's going to get another 50 cents this year. So that puts the union below them considerably. And then we're going to implement the new merit-based raise system. We have the forms ready to go. We're going to institute it April 1st. The plan is to give the evaluation to the employee, and then they have to come back with some goals that they want to try to achieve in the year. And then in 2017, have a pot of money to give the merit-based raises from that pot, from 1% to however.
before you go on to another topic, what happens if they list things, but you or the people here, the administrators, see something different as far as the need? I mean, they may say, I only need to do X, and the administration says, well, we have some other areas to be covered. Is it strictly what they put down, or
No,
is it will be a combination?
It's a combination, because the employee, should be working on what their goals are, and the management has, also goals as well. So, they try to be able to, kind of work work together to achieve those goals.
Question, Mark?
Thank you. If I could back up a little. The delegation has been talking about merit-based raises or pay for a number of years. We were told last year that we would move into, and that we would be sitting here and talking about merit-based pay increases. When I heard last week the commissioner's budget, and what I heard again today was, first thing is we're going to throw out there 50 cents. We're going to throw out there another 50 cents, and then we're going to start thinking about a merit-based raise. And then I hear that, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to pass out literature to our employees and ask them to start considering what would be a benefit, how they could save money and so forth, and develop a pool of money that would be used for merit-based raises. That's entirely different than a performance, an interview being done by the administrators of each department and looking how a person is performing and making a decision on whether or not they should be paid what they were in the past or if they should receive more money. I mean, where's this model coming from? I've never heard of a model like this before.
Well, Representative, maybe the way the county administrator explained it might have not been clear to you, but I think he was trying to describe just as what you were saying. However, the first 50 cents that we plan on giving the non-union employees was because, it's my understanding, they did not receive any raise all of last year, period. So they did not receive a raise, but all the union, no.
No, they received 40 cents,
45.
All right.
45.
So the objective was to help catch them up to that level. And then the 50 cents at the 1st of April is because that is when we're going to institute the merit-based policy. And the policy of that is such that on their anniversary date is when these evaluations will take place. And there will be, indeed, communication flow from both sides about what they feel should be their objectives and what the head of the department wants to be their objectives. But then they don't receive a raise until the following year.
Right.
So there's going to be a whole another year from their anniversary date before that person will be eligible for a raise. So that's why we're saying we're trying to catch them up, because they're not going to get another raise for more than a year after these increments, to try to get them, so to speak, caught up. In order to institute.
Thank you for your explanation. I just wonder why I'm always sitting here with new people discussing something that we have discussed in the past. And the direction of this delegation was, when we gave raises last time, was that we would be moving into performance-based raises going forward. There was no one on the delegation, correct me if I'm wrong, there was no one in the delegation that said, I tell you what, take another year to think about this and come back to us the following year. So I'm disappointed.
In fairness to everybody, this was a 2-year contract, to my
Yes.
recollection. My 2-year contract, other than throwing a little extra money out there, which we had problems with, I think that all comes back to the commissioner's point of view. There's really not much we can do, given that we gave a 2-year contract from the commissioners, which we wanted, by the way. We wanted a multi-year contract.
And by treating the non-union differently, I don't think we want to do that. I don't think we want to give them less than what we do to the union.
Do you envision this being extra money when it's implemented, or in lieu of pay raises?
In lieu of pay rate. It'll be strictly a performance-based raise.
Mark, do you want? Lino?
Just one. Is it going to be peer-to-peer as well? So they're going to do like a self-review, and then they're going to have a
Yes.
management review? So everybody can have an understanding of where they are.
And how is this going over with the employees?
Well, we haven't really, rolled it out yet. We have all the forms ready to go, and we will implement it in April. I mean, most of my department heads already know about it.
Okay. One of the things, before we go any further on that may help us down the line, the purchase of the county farm for food, et cetera. One of the things that you were, hopefully you've read the agenda, purchases from the county farm, how much was purchased, and and food related, and how much do you anticipate for 2016?
I mean, I think in the budget, we put $500.
I think that's right.
And what was last year's budget?
It was 500, but then apparently the kitchen bought a lot more, a little over $7,000.
Yeah, and the additional, it's 500 in the budget. If you look at the expense reports, it shows 500, but any additional funds over 500, since we can't overspend the line, it's just within the food line itself. There's two food lines, there's food from farm and food. So it's my understanding that whatever extra money was spent above that 500 is in that food line.
Mark?
Thank you. I'd like to hear further explanation that the kitchen bought $5,000 more. We had the head of, what's Rob's position? What's his title? Food
Dietary
service
director.
Who was well of the understanding that it was a $500 budget. I spoke to him. He said that next year we might consider $1,000. And at the time I spoke to him, he wasn't aware of this extra expenditure. And I would like further explanation, because it's my understanding that the commissioners encourage strongly that the nursing home buy any and all produce that they bring forward. So I would like to know who overspent a budget line by $6,000. Did it come truly out of this facility? How did that come about?
All the slips I've seen, Rob signed the slips and sent them over, so he must have agreed to it.
Question on this?
Truly, there's no actual money spent. It's an
Thank you.
interdepartment transfer when we're talking about the nursing home facility transferring an appropriation over to the farm, and the farm realizing the revenue. It's all.
So
goes
the
like
thing
that.
is, it's not departments, it's different.
Pardon me?
It's not a department transfer, though. Would you could say that's a department transfer? From a prison to here? You said it was not
From the
introduced.
farm.
From the farm to here?
They're showing revenue at the farm,
Mhm.
and it's considered an expense here, but no actual money has been transacted for the food. We don't actually, we don't actually pay the county for our own food. So it's an interdepartment transfer is how it's transacted. It's not done by cash money, so he wouldn't see an invoice because he's.
You would see an invoice.
Yeah.
In the rules of engagement that Ron had, that laid out for him, is that
Okay.
in buying food from whatever source, if he was buying it from county, it would have to be the same price or better, the same quality or better, and the right quantity or better to meet his needs. And if that could be done locally, in the backyard, that's fine. But there was not to be any special considerations in quantity, more than we needed at a certain time, no degradation in quality, and the pricing was to essentially be Cisco or better. So that we had it wasn't the price that Will set, we were going to buy from what was going to be competitive. If Will was competitive, then it would be, if it were in the best interest of Mountain View, selfishly. With no offense to the farm, I left it open to Rob that if it was in Mountain View's best interest, then that should be an option. No, I don't know. I don't know, especially when it came to quantities, whether there was always the best of judgment used that way. Because I think sometimes we got more than what we needed at a given time, because based on, you know, everything seems to grow at the same rate. So, you know, we don't, you know, we're from Cisco, we're ordering just the case that we need. When the farm comes through, I think sometimes it's 10 cases, and that's not what we need.
Right. Certainly.
Sure, Representative?
Do we have a chain of transactions and costs and the $6,000? My understanding is it's frozen berries that might be somewhere. They're not in there. They might be in the farm. They might be at the jail. They might be over in freezers over here. Do we have numbers of what those quantities are, and do we have assurance that those items are all going to be used? The problem we had the year before was that the farm was bringing over quantities of items that could not be consumed and could not be integrated into his menu, which had to be done at least a week, and in some cases a month ahead. So show me some documentation. I hope I'm not out of line.
No.
But show me some documentation of how much this is, what the market price for it was, how much of it's already been consumed, how much of it is sitting in storage somewhere, and when's the last time it was inventoried? Could we make that formal
Sure,
request?
absolutely.
And sign documents
To
of
take care of that.
when these invoices happen?
The Paul has got the answer.
Well, I don't have the answer, so to speak, but Rob is in an interview, so I've asked them to let him know that they have questions.
I know each,
Because I know he has all the invoices, so I think without him here, it's.
Well, I'm saying, for my benefit, I would like to see it in writing.
Right, and that's like I said,
Because
that's
what I've been told on 2 occasions, in the scramble that pursued when I was here and I asked the question, and my understanding was that we were going to have something clear and concise here today for this discussion. And we don't. It's nothing but air. I apologize.
Well, like I said,
I'll
Rob
go
has
get it.
all that, but he's.
I'll go visit us
I
and
want
get
it in
it.
writing.
All right, I'll go get it.
I don't care.
Thank you. I would like to follow on to the representative's comments, and it's my recollection also that in many cases, if not most, the food service director is not aware until possibly he sees that invoice of what he is being charged by the farm. And he has no control over that, of the quantities, what is being ordered. His indication to us was many times, these are things that he cannot use.
But, so the answer is the dietary department should put it in an order of what they want. Everything's reversed. We get what the farm wants to sell us instead of saying, we will take X number of quarts of blueberries, et cetera, et cetera. So it should be reversed if they're going to do it.
My opinion is that based on the implied direction of the commissioners, that the farm is simply sending all it can send to the nursing home and charging the nursing home. In many cases, not in many cases, I know in blueberries, I remember watching a video of a half-an-hour discussion amongst the commissioners about the price that they should charge the nursing home for blueberries. So it is not market-driven. So I think there has to be a complete examination of what is going on in this area, because it's clearly not working to the benefit of the nursing home. Its benefit is to the revenue line in the farm, strictly to that benefit.
Representative?
I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
If it's an interdepartmental transfer, why is it considered revenue in the line and used to offset costs to the farm?
Simple answer to that is because it's always been done that way, and in the future it will not, because it is a true revenue.
Thank you.
One of the things that I noticed,
Thank you.
good, thank you.
I have one more follow-up after
Sure.
that. You'll be doing the same thing with the jail meals as well, right? When you look into that? Thank you.
Good, you're making some progress. Very nice.
So you don't want The jail, you don't want the nursing home to charge the jail for meals?
The nursing home should charge the jail for meals. It shouldn't be used to offset costs. It's going to be an interdepartmental transfer, because it's not really revenue. Because you're taking from one department, giving it to another. Same thing with the produce here. You're taking from one department, giving it to another. We're not gaining anything from it. When somebody hears revenue, it's basically profit. When I hear revenue, when you hear revenue, we have two different distinctions for it. When somebody says, oh, the farm made $105,000 till October of this year, is that real revenue? If it's coming from one department, give it to another.
But wouldn't that be the only way you track what's happening? Because if you don't have as revenue, how would you track it as a,
It would be an internal debit or credit.
but it would show up the amount?
It would have to balance for
Okay,
Chuck, but I mean, for our intensive purposes, this isn't real revenue.
okay.
Because if we give the farmer, if we give the jail $1 and we give the nursing home $1, they spend their $1, and it's still the same $2, no matter how we look at it.
Okay. Some way we can track it, that's fine. We're on the farm and the food, and our discussion went around the farm producing food that maybe you don't want, or the amounts you don't want, and it would appear this is an old issue that's not working. And I'm sure the farm might have to address this, but your feelings on it?
Well, for years, we've been trying to utilize what's produced at the farm for the menu for the, nursing home and corrections. And when I produce a meal per day, I might use 60 or 70 pounds of vegetables. Many times, because the farm is producing, food that's ready at the same time, they may end up, delivering 500 pounds of squash or something like that. And it just overwhelms my capacity, and I certainly can't use that much. So then we need to figure out how we're going to, what do we do with it to prep it, store it, so that it doesn't go to waste.
Do you see a possibility of putting in an order with them and saying, we will take X number of blueberries or squash or whatever, instead of them giving you what they want, you're ordering from them if they want to produce it?
We've tried that year after year, but it never seems to work. It always ends up being, we have only X amount of days that we're going to be picking crops, and, they have the DOC crew working on it, and it ends up at my back door. So I end up with, cases of product that haven't menued, and I'm trying to figure out how to work with it. I have worked with DOC and sent the product over to them so that we can try to get their help in peeling, slicing, bagging, and cryovacking, which we've done. And I actually still have some in the freezer now. But it's labor intensive for us just to transport back and forth and for DOC, so there hasn't been a good synergy between the the three entities yet, DOC, farm, and nursing home.
Question asked before, maybe you got the answer, Representative, regards to, do we know where all this stuff is? Is it inventoried? If you were charged $4,000 for blueberries, do you know where the $4,000 worth of blueberries are?
Well, we used, something like that. We had some in storage. We've used it all up now, but when I look at the pricing that I get from the farm, it always has been difficult for me to look at it and say, this really doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think when we're talking about, transfer journal voucher or something like that, rather than having it called revenue, that makes perfect sense. At Grafton County, they have a much larger farm department that they produce and provide food for their correctional facility. There's no cost involved. So when you look at their cost per meal, which I'm always, trying to make sure that our cost is competitive with every other county and every other facility, I look at theirs as an example of where they're always touting how low their food cost is. Well, they are truly producing a lot more food with a limited menu, but there's no cost involved to the DOC from their farm operation. here, I'm taking it and treating it just like I'm getting it from Cisco or from, native Maine produce. And I just have a question, does that make a lot of sense?
If I could, just looking through, and thank you for your honesty and always being available to us. When I look through here briefly, because a lot of these invoices are $180 and some are well over $230. We bought or signed for, I don't know, just a little under $3,000 worth of blueberries, and a limited number of squash and tomatoes. And I believe tomatoes were something that you'd expressed interest would be nice to have. We have some melons and some things like that. So, and some beans. So I guess my number for blueberries is probably even less than that. But my understanding is that we had $500 appropriated. I apologize, I had eye surgery 2 days ago. I'm struggling back and forth what I can see and what I can't see. We had $500 in our account for farm fresh food from the farm. And it's my understanding that the farm is showing somewhere in the neighborhood of $7,000 for vegetables of income, which we know going forward was not income, because the only people that were receiving their product was here. And blueberries apparently was the majority of what we received. And if these are our slips, we're not even halfway to where it is. You're saying that blueberries are a nice product and that you've used some, it was labor intensive, not as easy as receiving something from Cisco, clean, ready to go. And you have some supply left, which would be nice for our residents, I'm sure. But are there more invoices here that I don't see, because we're not even
Those
coming
are all the
close?
invoices that I had. I think you had the same ones that I had, but.
I had some
Those are the
reversed
same
that
ones I had.
There had been some invoices that I hadn't seen or approved that ended up in accounting, and we backed those out from what I understand, with Kathy, that it shouldn't have hit the dietary line.
Shouldn't hit your food cost.
Right. I mean,
Although, if you know some of the slips, that's where you put them in the 050 line.
right, I did, but there were some that I hadn't seen.
I think Mark has some that Rob didn't sign. You have copies in there that have no signature from Rob on them.
I have some without any signatures on them. But I don't have anywhere near, and I trust me, my site isn't that well today, but I'm usually pretty good at adding money, and I'm not even halfway to where we need to be. So that has nothing to do with you, sir. I would just like further clarification. And, so we had a half a chance meeting a couple weeks ago, and we talked about this and mentioned that, the value of having a product that was done local and fresh and being of benefit to your end users. And when I'd asked the question, where we thought it would be, and you'd made comment that, it's always a struggle, but, we started with 500 this year, and then perhaps we could work our way out to $1,000. But at the time when we spoke, I think you were a little set back, that I told you that it was $7,000 worth of.
Right.
That's only 10 months.
Thank you.
It was just, we pay for the labor, we pay for the seeds, we pay for the expenses, yet we charge for the produce. Just doesn't seem to make sense to me. That's all.
I don't think we need to hold up, gentlemen.
No, we don't.
Perhaps the administrator or the commissioner could relay to us. That's where we were in the past. I've heard from our finance officer that going forward, we won't be accounting for income in the same way that we did in the past. So where are we at this point? We must be getting ready to buy fertilizer for next year and other things for the farm. How is this being handled going forward?
We are putting the fields out to bid.
Did you, by the way, send the bids to the local farmers, or is it just they got to look at the website to find it?
It's in the Conway Sun.
Yeah, how about the Farm Bureau? Did you send something out to those
No.
guys? It seemed that that would pay at least.
We talked about that today, actually, in the commissioners' meeting.
One of the things that I think, of just looking at the newspaper things, people think that, I'm speaking for myself now, the delegation is being obstructed doing that. I think we're bringing things to light that needs to be addressed, and you folks have been working on that. So we're not trying to cause troubles. What we're trying to do is, we don't have to tell everybody, it's a mess, what you guys inherited in some areas. And we are working with you and trying to straighten this out. So we're not trying to cause trouble. We have a common goal to make this.
What are you
very
referring
clear.
to?
Well, I'm trying to think of all the things that have happened with the nursing home and other places, these little landmines, you use the dental insurance, you use all different things that keep coming up, and it looks like we're causing trouble, and I think if some of these issues we don't bring to light, we're not doing deal.
I don't think
Not
anyone's
you,
saying-
not you,
oh, okay.
not you. No,
But
I'm talking about the newspaper and
Oh.
the perception out there, not you at all. You've been very cooperative. So I think some of these questions that we're asking on the farm related, for example, we're doing for the good of the order.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're not trying to cause trouble.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we will be scheduling our subcommittee meetings.
Yes.
Is it your understanding, or is it Commissioner's understanding sitting here, that the Commissioners ahead of our next meeting, which will probably be the beginning of July, will be withdrawing revenue out of the proposal for the farm for vegetables? and
Beginning of July?
January, sorry.
Yes, same thing.
Will that budget, or is that for us to go through and adjust and speak to?
Once we submit the budget, it's up to you now to adjust those lines.
So we bring these to your attention, you're going to revise it as we go along.
Under your direction.
Okay?
I
Okay?
think you'll find the revenue side has been reduced already dramatically. And we'll continue to look at that to see what is actually revenue and what isn't. And depending on what happens with the fields and what happens with the blueberries and what happens with any produce, if and when we produce it next year, we'll look at each of those issues and decide whether they're revenue or
Right.
not revenue.
Thank you, sir.
Point of order?
Sure. Point of order. Okay.
Technically speaking, the commissioners don't have the budget. The commissioners make recommendations. Once they submit those recommendations to us, the delegation creates the budget. So they cannot go back and change it. The business office can provide us with worksheets to help us understand what changes have happened. The commissioners cannot change the budget once it's been submitted. And the other thing is, I would just suggest that, in my understanding, this is the Mountain View Community Subcommittee, and decisions about what's going to be done with the farms are more properly made at the Farm Subcommittee.
Thank you for making that, but I think maybe the farm committee needs to be aware of these issues, because maybe there's no value for us purchasing things for the farm. So I think, get it from somewhere else and then give us what we want here, speaking generally, but I'm not going to get into the farm. I understand, I accept your comments as such. And I think we're all aware that we go on from here. I think it was whether corrections are going to be made as we go along, as we make adjustments on the lines. Will you be, for us, not for the commissioners, will you be making adjustments as you go along? How have you done that before? Okay, so the updates
As we
go
get more current information.
Sure.
That's-
Okay. Does that answer your question?
That does, thank you.
Because we've worked well in the past. Any other questions on the farm? Not the farm. The nursing home, dealing with purchasing things from the farm.
Just a simple question. This is not my place, but I have a question. What's showing as revenue for the farm, isn't that ultimately reducing expenses for Mountain View Community, the kitchen?
Is it, really?
Is it?
I question whether it really is. You want to answer that, Lena? I don't really think it is. Because they're paying full price for it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they're taking it from Rob's account, too. taking it and sending it over to
Yeah, but
you.
it's not being spent out in the business world. It's an inside number.
Right, it's not coming in, there's nothing coming in. Like like Medicaid payments or private pay payments, that's technically revenue to the county. But the internal transfer is not really revenue, it's just an accounting, you know, this is where this money went, it went to here. It's not really coming into the county, it's transferred within the county.
I would defer to Chuck, but it ends up being pretty much cost accounting, which is going to be different than, which treats your expenses different than your revenue. It's clearly not additional revenue to the county, but cost accounting allows you to track where your actual cost of production are, your cost of service are. Because we have a cost of service for feeding our residents, whether it comes from a cost from the farm or whether it comes from Cisco, that we should track that cost so that we know
Right.
what it is. But which is different than treating it as revenue to the farm. And how we set that up in our accounting systems, well, that's an interesting strategy for Chuck.
Well, not going on with the farm, because that's a whole different issue, but thinking of something somebody said here, if they're bringing in $30,000 for the sake of argument on the farm, but it costs X amount to produce the product, you know, with overhead and employees to supervise, et cetera, the income may be, in essence, a false number. I mean, it may appear to the public, wow, I mean, I saw a thing in the paper, they made $70,000 or some number was the income from the farm, and all the things that they do, but it didn't show the expenses to get that $70,000. And that's just a concern, but that's up to the farm folks to take care of, the ones that out. Somebody put in a recommendation, ICS revenue guidelines. That wasn't my suggestion, question. I think, Lino, was that you?
Yeah, I had some,
Okay.
just wanted to just follow up with all that.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if we need to, other discussions that we need to keep two of our supervisors here for.
Okay. No? Okay, ready. Oh, the cash handling, we do want to get through that one.
It's after hours for me, so
Okay. I'm just
if you need
saying
me, I'll
that-
stay. If you don't need me, I'll be happy to go home.
I don't think we do, sir.
Good night.
Our attendance.
Thank you.
The next one is cash handling.
I just
Yeah,
want to try to review what we just talked about, just kind of a summation of where we're going and what the vision is. I just dropped one second.
Rob, hold up.
So you have a list of the things that you have duly purchased that you signed for and the prices for them?
What are we referring to?
Things that you quote unquote purchased as value from the farm for the things that they gave to you?
I log in, you know, the invoices that they give me on my spreadsheets as, you know, cost,
Okay.
so that I'm including that in my
Do you
cost
know
per
what that
meal.
total is?
There were two,
Produce?
excuse me,
Do we know what that total is in produce? Do you know what that number is?
In farm purchases.
Yeah, in the farm purchases, not produce, but the farm purchases.
it was somewhere around 5,000.
That you signed for? That you authorized?
I think so. You know, I'd have to go back and look at, you know, my spreadsheets,
Okay, well, I'm
year to date, but,
we have a list. I'm
you
just
know.
trying to find out what the difference is between what you signed for as being product that you have authorized and the amount of revenue that shows on the revenue side of our expense sheet. And if there is a differential, then that's really where the rubber meets the road in this situation. Because if, you know, if you're saying we're lowering your cost by $5,000 and we're saying that they're getting revenue of $5,000, it's washing. But if there isn't, then it's not washing. And that's
it's
the
not
difference.
lowering my cost at all.
I understand that. And that's another issue. And I don't believe that you should have to buy things that you don't think are necessary or need. You know, that, as I've said, you know, years before, that the farm should be producing what you want, take, and plan on you being their customer. And what they don't want, they need to take to the market. You know, you're not here to take whatever they produce and produce. But if there's a differential between what you have booked as revenue and what you have booked as cost, then we have something that is of issue, and that needs to balance. Those two numbers need to balance, or they need to have receipts from taking it to some market somewhere, which I'm not aware of, but maybe they do that. But, you know, that's certainly something that is of interest. You know, if we're showing it as revenue to help track actual, in the vein of cost accounting, to get a flavor of what the revenue is being produced, even though it's an interdepartmental transfer, but so we can look at these sheets and get an idea of what we're spending at the farm and what the farm is bringing in, okay? But if those numbers are false, that's a falsehood. You don't need them. You know, if you're not their customer and they're just putting stuff at your doorstep, and it's not of value to you, you know, then it's false. It's not really, you see what I'm saying? But if it is of value, it is a cost. It's the same way as, you know.
We're gonna move on, because I'm watching that clock, we're gonna be done.
When are we supposed to be done?
I'm hoping to be done at 4:15.
Do you and Will meet before the growing season?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We do, and, you know, we've always tried to get that, you know, working relationship, but it just has never worked to our advantage from the nursing home, you know, our county production facility, you know, to our advantage, because it ends up being too much or a quality that I question and I can't use for the intended use. Tomatoes come in, they can't be used, you know, as anything but sauce, you know, or, you know,
Okay.
ingredients and casseroles, and I'm paying top dollar for it, so.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Cash handling, reconciliation policies for, and for,
Thank you.
what are the cash handling situation we had in the, using the credit cards and all that? Anybody wanna?
I'm just still looking, you can, did we get those? Anybody get those? I know you were working on it.
I have,
Is there a policy?
I have, what I've been working on is a big internal control procedures. This is a work in progress. I've presented it to the commissioners. It's all what we do in the finance office. You know, we work on it as time permits. We have come up with the anti-fraud policy, the investment policy,
Wonderful.
the employee reimbursement policy. We have an approved vendor form now that we search on the Secretary of State's website to make sure that they're a vendor that actually does business, that there's no ghost vendors. And that's what Chuck and I have done since we've gotten here. This is the one that's going to take a while because it talks about the cash handling and, you know, what we do, you know, as far as deposits and what we do with payroll checks and how we hand them out and how we safeguard them. And so it's a big document, and you know, what we do with you know, as far as chronos and, you know, time management.
One of the things that came up was the credit card system and updating. There were some issues paying too much of a percentage.
I'll turn that over to Howie.
I actually have good news for you. The first is to give credit to Representative Avellini, who called it exactly right. It's taken all this time, till last week and this week, for me to finally make the connections with the people that we need to at our credit card company. His credit card company, the easiest people in the world to get hold of. Ours have been difficult, but I have the right guy. And they went on record this week as admitting, nothing deliberate. I sent them a comparison and said, there's something the matter here. And it's just what Lino had pointed out. You have fixed costs in credit card transactions for essentially the software, then you have transaction costs that vary with each transaction, very slightly depending on which card, debit, credit, and all that. But it turns out, you know, and I told them, and Lino had identified this early on, you know, we're paying something about 8% more. Gross dollars based on $2,000 a month in sales, not huge, but it's wrong and it's significant. He's already pledged that they will be making reimbursement to us, but they're calculating that out going back to when we first started. So it's, I'll have an update for you. It's not gonna be huge dollars, but it's correcting a wrong. I mean, these things matter.
Thank you for following up on that. This is a perfect example, as I mentioned before, things brought to light, and thank you for Lino, seeing something and correction as a result or improvement of it. And
It's
that's what
almost
the delegation
impossible
did.
to understand these statements, but it jumps right off the page to Lino. I mean, but his numbers are like right on. It should be, our net all-in cost should be something around 2%. And they've been much higher than that. So there there's no reason why we can't get back there. And at some point, there might be no reason why we shouldn't change providers too.
Good, well, we're making progress. Anything to add, Mark?
No, I don't.
Dana?
I just see your agenda.
No, we're gonna.
Did you want to get
pretty
done? You
quick.
got 3 minutes.
Well, we're gonna be done pretty quickly. Do you have a couple of things? We've got another, we can go 5 if we have to.
The 2014 revenue detail. The credit card sales don't match what's listed here. From the invoices. And they don't match what's here. So I don't know if there's a discrepancy with what they're billing or what you're getting reimbursed for, or if there's, transactions that are missing.
Paul and I have, we can speculate what might be happening. In my report, it's for the month, October is October. We speculate, and we haven't talked to Chuck about this, but we speculate that what gets posted is maybe, depending on how cash is being handled, it's being credited to the month when it's deposited, not to when it's earned. It'd be easy enough to do. So everything, at the end of the year, if we close the books December 31st, 2015 would match. But that's what I don't know what our cash management part is at the office. We bring the cash from the cafe is going over almost daily.
Once a month, no.
No.
Your deposit daily, I do once, twice a month. But, and the issue with that is if I do a deposit on the 26th, and I don't do another one until the beginning of December, well, then there's some in November in that December deposit.
No, I'm okay with that. It's just that the invoice for,
Well, the credit cards, we don't see the credit card invoices over here.
do you want them?
Not really.
Well, December says 866 in total sales, and it's 958 on here. And there was also no deductions for fees in December.
So maybe, is that the difference between the two figures?
That's what I'm just, it should be broken out so we can get.
Right, and
Yeah.
my guess is that's what it would be, but I don't see them.
How does 2015 look? Does it look like it's set up differently than 2014?
There's no breakout of
Fees.
fees. Well, there's a breakout of fees.
Yeah, there is.
But the credit card sales are lumped together.
Because I work right from the credit
Bec-
card statement.
Yeah.
And
Howie's number is 60,383, and you have 68,016.
we go off the Bank of New Hampshire, what's deposited into the account, because we don't get anything else.
Right.
So when it's deposited and when it appears in the bank, I mean, I'm not sure how different that might be, or how much is deposited.
Right, well, that's what I
Because-
was saying, if I do a deposit on a certain day, but he's saying the credit card statements don't match, and I don't see, because I don't know how those are posted.
Help us out with that.
Just a comment. Kathy Armstrong and I had a prolonged discussion about this morning. And one of our projects for January, after we get through closing out the year and starting up the new year, is to look at how we operate here at the nursing home in terms of cash management and the credit card and the whole process, and when we make those deposits. One of my pet peeves is that Paul brings over this bucket of coins, and I end up going to the drive-in window in Moultonborough on my way home, and I have to sit there for 15 minutes because they don't have a coin counter.
They don't have one.
And count it all up. So we're going to look at the whole process of how we handle cash, how we handle the money, and how we safeguard it. Because I was astounded when I got here that we had no policy, we had nothing in place. But we're working on
Anything else?
No, just,
No, we certainly appreciate what you guys inherited.
most
and-
certainly.
And what you're doing. You should get great satisfaction because you have an issue that you can fix. And there are certainly enough things to fix. And we're very appreciative of what you do. We're not critical of you, we just want to see things
There's
fixed.
a lot to do.
There is a lot to do, and there's a lot that hasn't been done as far as financial policies, and we are working hard at that, because that's something that we truly need in that office.
Would you prepare for us, for you, a sequence that you want to follow for us addressing different departments as we go through this, that would work in your schedule? So you may want to suggest who would go up first, second, third, so we can cover this as efficiently as we can and cover all departments. So you may want, one difficult one and 3 easy ones, or whatever.
I think that's how we did it last year. I think we picked certain
You want us to
nursing
pick the
was
dates
one,
and you bring the people,
You
or
have
do
to,
you want?
you have to tell us how many meetings you want to have, and then we
And
can
then we'll
work backwards.
separate the
One.
people, because nursing
50.
is one meeting.
One.
Go with another number.
How about one?
It's not
One.
going to happen.
One.
It'll probably be one.
All day. We'll just keep going.
We can do it all day.
Yeah, all day.
If we need to do that, we
Are
will.
you going to be here
Well,
today?
believe me, we have.
Wintertime is quiet.
I'm happy with that.
Okay,
That'd be great.
Yeah. it's all
an
yours.
all-day marathon.
That's fine.
Chuck, you all set with that? Well, it just can't be during a payroll week, that's the only thing,
That'd be a non-payroll.
a non-payroll week.
Okay. And we'll work on a date between us.
Sure.
Ed's input on it, and we'll do all day. Any particular days work better of the week than others? From your point, from our point of view, with their point of view? We know Wednesdays and Thursdays are going to be out from our point, just for the legislative duties. So we get rid of those two.
Yeah, we got Wednesdays and Thursdays coming up in the
Right.
next couple of weeks.
So,
And it's just a non-payroll week for us, and
Mondays and Tuesdays.
Mondays, Tuesdays are good, yeah.
Non-payroll week.
and we'll have committee meetings, so probably Mondays.
Commissioner, is that okay with you?
Friday.
Mondays and Fridays are the days I'm available.
So Monday.
Any day that doesn't end.
Well, I'm available Wednesdays too, but Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Oh, yeah, you got that.
A Monday would be my preference, Mr. Chairman.
Mondays?
I'll make a Monday work.
Okay, so we're going to go with a Monday. And when you're ready to go at any point?
Yeah.
When you want to get to the end of the year?
Yeah, it has to be in
One year, I
January.
figured, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we'll do a one-day marathon, and hopefully Len will get back to us what he has, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Because we want to make a recommendation to the delegation on his project from this committee, and hopefully we'll come up with the answers. Any questions from anybody? Okay, I want to keep it short today. No one else? I thank you. I apologize again for
Thank you,
being
sir.
late, but we're going to work on get this out of the way and make sure some things work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, everybody.
You too.
Merry Christmas.